Welcome to Ancient Faith Presents. I'm Bobby Maddex, Operations Manager of Ancient Faith Radio, and today I will be speaking with Father Roberto Ubertino, the Executive Director of St. John the Compassionate Mission in Toronto, Ontario, and Deacon Pawel Mucha, the prefect of the mission's Lived Theology School. Now, the reason I wanted to visit with Father Roberto and Deacon Pawel today was to find out more about this Lived Theology School. It's an internship program for those wanting to learn more about city missions. Welcome, Father Roberto and Deacon Pawel.
Thank you. It's good to be on.
Well, before we talk about the Lived Theology School, why don't one of you tell me a little bit more about the mission? When was the mission started, and what exactly does it do?
Well, the mission started at 25 years. We just celebrated a few weeks ago, 25 years of operation. It started because we wanted to learn how to live and to be Orthodox mission. There are a lot of models for mission. You have the Salvation Army, you have different Protestant and Catholic forms of it, and there really is not at this present time an Orthodox model for mission. And in this country anyway, we don't have it. One of the things that we wanted to do was to really live it, try to live it as best as we could, so we would discover it together with the poor. And so it's been always a focus for us of being with the people, being and learning together with the people who come what Orthodox mission is about. And so there are many activities that we do, of course, in the process. Well, we're trying to be together with those who are marginalized and suffering in our culture. You know, we serve hundreds of meals. We have a school for children who are in the neighborhood to help them to integrate in the school system, focusing on English and math. We have a thrift store, we have a bakery, we have many different activities. But the reason for it, it's really is to be with people, is to have compassion. And for us, compassion, literally, the word means to suffer with, to really share one's life with one another, and to discover the presence of Christ in that.
Of course, also now you have the Lived Theology School, and how did the idea for that come about?
The Lived Theology School came out of this sense as we were coming to our 25th. There was this sense, that there was a lot of practical wisdom that had just been acquired. There were many lessons that the poor taught us, and many stories, many events that really we felt we have something here to say, to share. And so it was an attempt to want to share with the church some of the experience, some of the practical wisdom that has been lived for 25 years in this place. And so that was one of the reasons. The other reason, too, is that we see that there's a real need for some solid formation in terms of not only how we do mission, but how do we relate to society? How do we relate to the world? How can we really, as a church, be part of a neighborhood? And we wanted to offer a place for people to come and to have some practical experience and to be challenged and to experience a little bit what happens when the church, the Orthodox Church, opens its doors to the street. And what the church learns, how the church can be changed by that, and how the church also can become an instrument of healing in the world.
Why don't you share a little bit more of the details of the program? Like, how long does it last, and what do participants do while they're there?
I'd like Deacon Pawel to answer this.
Sure.
It's his domain.
Well, the full internship program lasts for 1 year, and that was quite deliberate because the work we do to a certain extent is seasonal, so the needs of the summer or the spring are not exactly the same as the winter. So that was why a year was decided on. I think it's really important at the outset to say that it's not just an academic experience. I mean, there are plenty of places that do that already and at a much higher academic standard than we could ever have or even wish to have here. but it's an integrated lived experience. There are 4 key elements to the program. Diakonia, or practical service, which can take many forms in the work of the mission. Liturgy is very, very key, so we have a very full liturgical life here associated with the parish and the mission as well. There is study, which is both formal and informal. And then the other key element is that of community. And community is quite diverse because there's a community of those of us who live and work here, of people who come to the mission on a daily basis. There's the parish community, and then the interns have their own community. And that's also something, that experience of community would be a good preparation for anything that an intern might do in the future, whether it was in the direction of marriage or even monasticism. We also have opportunities, and we like to encourage others who can't do the whole year to have the LTS, the Lived Theology School experience, of these 4 elements for a shorter period. And people have come for days or weeks or a month or whatever for that.
Well, let's talk about the study element for a second. It says in your brochure and on your website that it includes formal lectures on the Orthodox theology and spirituality of mission to the poor and the marginalized. And I'm wondering what you can tell me about this study element. What precisely will participants be studying?
Well, we have 9 modules, which basically all center on the same thing. They have a common theme of understanding how Scripture, the Fathers, the saints, the liturgy, and the church become real and alive in the context of the church's mission to the poor. And it has been an experience, particularly over the last year, when we see how questions arise from the actual lived experience. We've had formal lectures and seminars, and we've had a variety of teachers. Some of them are well known, some less so. Metropolitan Callistus has been here, Metropolitan Hilarion of Volokolamsk, Father Thomas Fitzgerald from Holy Cross, and so on. But as Father Roberto always reminds us, the real teachers are, in the words of St. John the Merciful, St. John the Compassionate, the poor are masters.
I like that comment, the poor being the teachers. And I'm wondering what it is that the poor have to teach. What do you hope that people who are in the Lived Theology School learn from the poor?
If I may comment on that, one is about the mystery of vulnerability. That, we have a sense of our own worth by what we do and how much we do. And when you're in face of someone who is poor, you're in face of the mystery of human vulnerability. And it is a place also of intimacy and of gentleness that you discover through that, because you really experience not on an intellectual level, but on a real gut level, this sense of, that what is of the human worth, of the presence of God in us, that is not based on what we do and what we achieve and how smart we are and how well we talk. And I think in that there is something about really, the identification of Christ with the poor is more just an ethical thing, and that we have to be nice to them or we have to do things for them. In fact, I always like to quote Mother Maria, who says, on some point, she says, if the poor person does not sense that they matter to you, that you love them, not just because they're poor, but because they're who they are, they don't matter to you personally, they will never be able to forgive you for the help you gave them. And I think to live out of that, you can't live out of it as a profession. It cannot simply be something you do, because, we are, because of this, one extra thing that I got to do during the day. But it has to be really what the church is about. And I think there is something in that when the church begins to approach those who are vulnerable in society, those who have no power, as it learns to approach them with respect and with humility, it then begins to understand itself better, And that's why I think that it does change how you see yourself. It certainly has changed me as I see myself as a priest, how I understand the faith, There are many, many situations where I have been evangelized by the poor, by people who are even technically outside the church, And I think you can only do that if you learn to become poor yourself. That's why the Lived Theology is it's not about learning techniques. It's not about getting all the facts right. It's really about disarming oneself and learning, what it means to be human.
Wow, what a profound answer, and what a rewarding and important and salvific endeavor. It just sounds like participating in something like the Lived Theology School is. How many people have participated in the project so far, and what sort of interest have you been getting from people in the program?
If I can come in here, well, to date we have had only 2 full-time one-year interns, but if you include those who have come for shorter periods, including students and seminarians, and those who have involved themselves in the open seminar days, and probably 100 or more people have been involved altogether. In terms of level of interest, right, when people have heard of the program, they have been interested. We've had inquiries from many countries and even continents, but our problem has been in getting the word out so that people will know it exists. Currently, only our own diocese, the Carpatho-Russian diocese, has a link to the Lived Theology School, and we would be very happy if any diocese or Orthodox organization would link to our site. And so we appreciate very much that Ancient Faith Radio is giving us this opportunity to spread the word about LTS.
Well, that actually raises an interesting point, and that is, some people are not going to be able, obviously, quite a few are not going to be able to participate in something like the Lived Theology School, but, they may want to help out St. John the Compassionate Mission in some way. And you mentioned here, linking to the website of the mission, and what are some of the other things that people can do from abroad to help you guys out?
Well, as I say, a really big thing nowadays because of the internet is doing something which is cost-free and very simple, which is just simply to create a link and to give some publicity to the fact that the Lived Theology School actually exists.
We definitely have listeners who are looking for ways to participate in missions, and they're going to want to know the answers to some of the practical questions about the program. How much does it cost? What is the level of commitment that you require? Where will they live? That sort of thing. What can you tell us about that?
Right. Well, the cost is $350, that's Canadian, per month.
Okay.
But that includes room, board, and tuition. It's true that for some people cost is a factor. We would hope that parishes would see an internship as an investment in a person and sponsor an individual. It's certainly not our aim to teach people to mimic St. John the Compassionate Mission, but to find their own expression of Orthodox mission in their own setting. So it is a real investment in that point of view. In terms of level of commitment, well, you might guess that from my accent that I'm not from North America, so I would quote Winston Churchill and say that we look for no more than blood, sweat, and tears. But that's no more than the gospel itself demands. I think that if people were to come here, they would find that in some ways it is the narrow way. There is time for R&R, but it would be less than honest if you were to give the impression that it is other than a total commitment that's really required during that year. If someone were to be looking for the feel-good factor, something to Twitter about, then they probably would be disappointed. Only last week somebody said to us that we were being a little bit ambitious, expecting that kind of commitment, but certainly the interns that we had last year have shown that in fact there are people who are prepared and willing and will actually make that kind of commitment.
Now, can participants begin at any time, or is there like an official start date?
Well, ideally it would be nice to have a small group start together, but the internship can be started at any time of the year.
Okay, and now we've talked a couple times now about, linking to your website, but I don't think we've given the web address yet. So why don't you give us the web address and then tell us how prospective participants might apply?
Well, the website's really easy, www.livedtheologyschool.org. There are applications on the website for people who want to do the full 1-year internship. And we also have a second category that we call working guest volunteers for those who want to come for a shorter period of time, and there is also an application form there for them as well.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Deacon Pawel, and you too, Father Roberto.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time.
Again, I have been speaking with Father Roberto Ubertino, the Executive Director of St. John the Compassionate Mission in Toronto, Ontario, and Deacon Pawel Mucha, the prefect of the Lived Theology School. I'm Bobby Maddex, and this has been a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio, on the web at ancientfaith.com.